I think I'm a perfectionist. I think I've always been, and for anything to go out of my shop that I didn't feel was right, well, I just wouldn't let it happen.
Maloof, a woodworker for 35 years, a man whose beautifully designed and executed furniture has rarely been matched for its classic form and finish. Sam is probably America's #1 craftsman in wood. He lives in this splendid, sprawling house behind me, which he designed and built, step by step, himself. I'm Barbara Lee Diamonstein for Handmade in America. And one more thing. Sam Maloof has never had a day's formal training as a woodworker in his entire life.
When I started, I wanted to get out of the hubbub of what was happening. I just wanted to, I guess I followed a different drummer. I don't know. It is true, I've been told that I was selfish for not designing where more people could use my things, but this is being fulfilled, really. And I do work for a lot of young people. I work for people of great wealth. I work for people of very little means, and I find that they both enjoy what I do.
How many pieces have you done in all?
Well, I think the last time we counted, there were something like 3,000 pieces, and that included chairs, tables, cabinets, well, all phases of furniture. I've done churches, I've done a lot of offices, but mostly household furniture.
With my very rough arithmetic, that comes out to something like 100 pieces a year, yes, approximately. 2 a week made by hand over a 35-year period on the average. It's staggering. Well, how do you manage to sustain that level of work?
I work at 8, start at 8, and then I work till about 5:36, come and have dinner. But when I worked alone, I used to work, I'd get up at 7, get out the shop, I'd work till 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and 6 days a week. But now as I'm getting older, although I don't feel older, my wife says I should slow down, but I find it very stimulating and very exciting.
What's the most difficult piece for you to make?
I think the chair is, but I've made so many of them that really I don't find it too difficult, but I think for most people a chair would be the most difficult.
Why more than a desk or a table?
The joinery. There's an awful lot of joinery in a chair, and then too, a chair that doesn't sit well, you know, it can be beautifully constructed, beautiful to look at, but if it doesn't sit well, then it isn't a good chair. So that you have to take this into consideration too.
What's your favorite piece of furniture to design?
Well, the piece that I'm working on at the time, really, all of them are my favorites. I enjoy, well, whichever piece I'm making, I find just a lot of enjoyment in it, no matter how many times I've made that particular piece.
You've just mentioned one of the best known and widely imitated innovations that you have designed, and that is the use of exposed joinery. Whatever made you do that? How did that come about?
Well, when I first started, I thought, well, what a shame to cover something that is so beautiful. I just didn't feel that joinery should be covered. I thought that after all the hard work of making a beautiful joint and then to cover it over, it took something away. And I think that when you see a beautiful joinery, for example, on this rocking chair, people wonder how I make it, and I explained, but not very long ago in Fine Woodworking did an article about me, and they asked if I would show the joint, and so anybody can make it now, but I've had people call me and wonder, well, you know, the drawing is here, but I still can't figure out how to make it. But I've always felt that there are no secrets in woodwork, that it perhaps has been done before, and that if I can make it easier for someone else to accomplish what I've done in a shorter time, well, fine.
Well, what's your method of working? Do you go back and forth from piece to piece, a chair in the morning, a table in the afternoon?
Oh goodness, I work on a lot of them. In the shop now, I must have 10, 12 pieces, different types of things that I'm doing now. And if I'm making chairs, I don't make anything in advance. Everything that I make is sewed before I start. In building a rocker, I start with the seat first. I usually, if I'm going to make 5 rockers, I cut all my wood out at one time. I put the back legs on first, and it's a rather simple joint that I use, but it looks difficult. Yeah, I work awful fast. I think that if I started in the morning from scratch, of course you have to consider the drying time and all that, but I think that I could put a rocking chair completely together in 2 days. But that does not include the shaping, it does not include the sanding, it does not include the oiling. I would say, I figure about 2 weeks, 3 weeks for a rocking chair. I think I'll put these on without any glue first and try them out, see how they fit. Rocker is different because, again, of the density of the wood, the way they balance. But when I get through, they all rock pretty much the same. But they all have their own characteristics, their own personalities, really. And no 2 rockers rock alike, even though they're all made the same. My shop is a little different than some of the shops that I know of that craftsmen have. Everything that is made in my shop I design myself. I do all the cutout, I do all the joinery, I do the rough sculpting. When I started, it wasn't, I never thought once about recognition because I thought, what a wonderful way to be able to make a living working with your hands and making things that I would enjoy making and other people would enjoy having. A friend of mine asked me how I went about designing a chair, and I said, I don't know, I just start designing them, and I do. I really can't tell you. On every rocker that I make, they all rock differently because the wood in the seat may be much denser than the one before. The back may be a heavier piece of wood and all. But after I make the chair, I use the same rocker on all of them. I have a form that I laminate the wood on, and by moving the rocker back and forth and then just tapping it, and if it rocks perpetually, I don't know if that's a word to use or not, then it's fine. And I don't have a formula. I know there are a lot of books on how to make chairs and how deep a chair should be and how wide and the cant of it, and people have asked me this question, and I use myself for a model. I'm not, I'm not that tall, but it seems that no matter how tall a person is, or how short, or how fat, or how thin, that my chairs seem to fit anyone. And
how do you explain that?
I don't know. I've had several people ask me to explain it, and I just don't know. And
did you ever study woodworking with anyone?
No, I never. I'm self-taught. I worked for an industrial designer that was Bauhaus school trained, doing window displays, and there I learned how to work with tools. But and then I worked with an artist, Millard Sheets, as his assistant. But even then I was working in wood. And it wasn't until I got married that I think my wife got tired of hearing how I wanted to be a woodworker. She said, well, just do it. So
you did.
With her faith and hope and backing, I did. Mm-hmm.
Has this lack of formal training been a limitation to you, or has it freed you to experiment?
Oh, I don't think it's, I think it's been great. When I first started, somebody had seen my furniture and asked if I would do a commission, a dining table and chairs and all. And on the strength of that, I quit my job. And it was sort of scary, but I did. And first of all, I made drawings, and because I'd been a graphic artist, I did very slick ones, and then I made little models that I still have. And then I did a prototype, just nailing the piece together. And then I got an okay on it, and I proceeded to make the chairs. And I remember the first one I made, I climbed up on the garage roof where I was working in a little one-car garage and dropped it to see if the thing would hold together. Well, it held together, except it broke a leg. And but I did that for a while, and I thought, well, that's an awful waste of time. And then I started making the actual piece. For example, the rocker that I'm sitting on, I knew, I had a picture in my head of what I wanted to do, and I just started making it. I developed it from myself, really. I didn't know a thing about furniture. I didn't have any furniture books. I didn't know anyone that was working with furniture. So it just evolved. It just evolved.
How do you find the apprentices who work with you?
Well, the two young men that I have working for me now, the one is a university graduate that was a fry cook, I think, before he came, and he's been with me for 4 years. And then the young man, Mike, the younger man, was a student at, I think, Long Beach State. And I don't think a week passes, I should say, that I don't have a letter from someone that wants to apprentice with me. And I feel very strong about training young people to work, well, in my media and more in wood. Why don't you come on over here? So that's the way it happens. No, this looks good in here. Be sure you keep a hard line in here, though, okay? Yeah. A real hard line. Yeah. In the same way here where this goes, I want this hard line to follow through real nice. It looks pretty nice.
You did a good job shaping that, Jerry. Thank you.
What's your favorite wood to work in?
Walnut.
Why that wood more than any other?
It's a very warm wood. I think I myself could live with walnut, where some of the other woods I couldn't. It works beautifully. It has a good feeling to the hand. It's a sensuous wood. I don't know if that's the correct word or not, but it's a mellow wood. It's a livable wood. The only thing that bothers you with this horrible inflation and everything, wood has skyrocketed. Rosewood, you can't even buy Brazilian rosewood anymore. And I have 6 orders for rosewood rockers, and I happen to have enough to make them. And the price that I'm getting for them wouldn't even buy the wood today.
Can you tell us what the chair cost, say, 10 years ago, and what it fetched several days ago?
I think 10 years ago I was making these for $500, $650, and that one brought $8,000. It surprised me. That's an awful lot of money. My problem has always been in pricing, really, and it hasn't been until recently that I've gotten a little nervy. But in some ways, I think it's sort of obscene to charge such horrible high prices. It means that young people who would want to buy a piece of artwork are just not able to afford it. And but a lot of times, in fact, I've done it. I'm doing it right now for young people. They pay me so much a month. I feel that if a person wants one of my pieces that bad, then so what? I don't have to have that much money for them.
This house is really quite remarkable. Not only have you designed the buildings and the furniture, you've created very beautiful doors and latches. Is there any overall design or plan? Can you describe what you've done with the doors and the latches?
Well, I don't like hardware. I don't use it on my furniture. If you notice, on my furniture you don't see any hinges, you don't see any metal at all. And
because there is none.
Because there is none. I think the only hardware I use is in my piano or my wooden hinges, where I have a brass rod going through, but then they're tapped with ebony or rosewood. But I find it just an awful lot of fun, a diversion, making the latches and the locks for the different doors.
Well, in addition to being able to look at a piece and very quickly say that must be a Sam Maloof, I wondered if you signed your pieces as well.
Oh yes, I've always signed them. When I first started, I had little metal letters that I hammered in, then I had a stamp, and now I just sign them with a burner. And I start at the first of the year, for example, no matter what it is, the first piece would be number 1, 1981, number 2, 1981, and then now 82 coming up, the first piece again would be number 1, 82.
Do you stain the wood? Is it oiled? What is it? And is there a formula that you've created to create this wonderful finish?
First of all, I don't use stains at all on any of my furniture at all. I think the natural wood is so beautiful. And then the sap wood, it's the light colored wood. I remember when I first started working, I thought, well, how beautiful the contrast and all. And besides, wood was expensive and I didn't want to throw it out. So I just left it. But the finishes that I use, I've used many different kinds of finishes, but for the last 20 years, I've used first it was a mixture of linseed oil and beeswax, and then on my tabletops I use a third varnish, a third tung oil, and a third linseed oil. And then to finish up, I use half tung oil, half linseed oil, and then I throw in a big 2 handfuls of grated beeswax in a double boiler. And people ask me the exact formula, and
that's the exact formula?
That's the exact formula. I happen to have very big hands, I think, and so if a person has small hands, has to put in 2 handfuls.
How is the happy owner able to maintain that finish once you come back to Alta Loma?
Oh, well, really, it's quite simple. Chairs, by sitting and feeling and touching, chairs take care of themselves. On tables, on the tabletops, the ones that we have here in the house, I don't think I've gone over them more than once a year. But if they do need rubbing down, I always recommend that they take a sponge with just a little bit of soapy water and wash the tables all off, because over the years...
soapy water on the wood?
Yeah.
And that doesn't cause it to warp or discolor?
No. What you do is take a sponge with just a little bit of water and a little bit of soap, and it's amazing how much dirt will come off of wood just with all the grime in the air. And then a clean cloth that is dampened, and then you take and put the oil on, and you use 4/0 steel wool, and if it feathers, that just puts it right down again.
Well, I've heard it said that nothing's ever left your shop that you're not proud of. That's a very enviable record of achievement. To what do you attribute that really high level of quality consistently over such a long period of time?
I think there's a sense of pride in what a person does, or should have. A person should have a sense of pride in what he does or she does. And if you don't have this feeling about what you make, then you should go into something else.
Sam Maloof is the real thing, a master craftsman in every sense of the word. His work is determined less by style or fashion and by enduring ideas of beauty and substance. With his skilled hands and thoughtful vision, he's also managed to create a way of life that is equal to the honesty and practicality of his work in wood. I am Barbara Lee Diamonstein for Handmade in America.